A very good evening to all my lovely kids. It's time for children's bedtime treasury with Let Emotions Speak. A little quiz whiz for you guys. Can you tell me which bird can fly backwards? I'll answer to this question at the end of the story. So today's story is The Singing Bear. Long ago there lived a young boy named Peter. He was a gentle lad who loved all creatures, but most of all he loved the animals and birds of the forest. Many a time he had mended a jay's broken wing or set a badger free from a cruel trap. One day the fair came to town and Peter was very excited. He could see brightly colored tents being put up in the field and carts arriving with mysterious looking loads. As soon as the fair was open, Peter was off with his penny in his pocket to try his luck. First of all, he got a go at the coconut shy. Then he tried to climb the greasy pole. Finally, he used his last farthing on the tombola stall. He was about to head for home when out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a dreadful sight. Lying in a cage, looking sad and forlorn, was a large brown bear. On a small plate at the front of the cage was the bear's name, Lombard. He looked so dejected that Peter immediately vowed to set him free. The cage was strongly padlocked, and Peter knew not how he could break the lock. He turned to make his way home, with the bear gazing pitifully after him. That night, Peter tossed and turned in his bed. What was he to do? He wasn't strong enough to break into the bear's cage, and his keeper would surely not agree to set him free. In the middle of the night, he resolved to return to the fairground to comfort the bear. He slipped out of bed and made his way by the light of the moon back to the fairground. To his astonishment, he found the bear singing a song to himself in a beautiful voice. For a while, Peter listened to the lovely sound of the bear singing. Then he had an idea. He remembered a piece of paper he had seen pinned to the palace gate. "Don't cry, Lombard," he said. "I think I know a way to get you out of here. But first you must teach me your song." The bear was happy to oblige, and soon the two of them were singing the song together. Then Peter said, "I must go, but I'll be back tomorrow. And remember, when you see me, be ready to sing your song." The next day, Peter put on his very best clothes and set off for the palace. Pinned to the gate was the piece of paper just as Peter had remembered. On the paper was written in a handsome script, "The king requires a minstrel with a fine voice. Apply within." Peter knocked at the gate. He was shown into a beautiful golden gallery where a row of minstrels were waiting to be auditioned. A courtier rang a little bell for silence, and in came the king. He sat down at his great gold throne. "Let the audition begin," cried the king. The first minstrel stepped forward. He sang a song in a sweet high voice that tugged at the heart and reduced the court to tears. The next minstrel sang in a deep, rich voice that sent shivers down the spine so that the birds in the trees stopped singing to listen. The next minstrel sang a song that was so witty and amusing that the entire court wept with laughter. At last, it was Peter's turn. He stepped forward, gave a deep bow, and said, "I beg your Majesty's permission to perform my song out of doors, so that all the wild creatures of the forest might hear it too." "What a strange request," said the king. However, if the truth be told, he had grown quite sleepy listening to so many beautiful songs and thought the fresh air might lift him up. "Very well, but it had better be worth it," he said, giving Peter a fierce look. "Follow me," called Peter. He led the king, the court, and all the minstrels out of the palace gates and down the road. "Where are we going? And this is very untoward," they muttered. At last, they reached the fairground, but Peter didn't stop until he was in view of Lombard's cage. Lombard saw him and Peter winked at the bear. "This is where I'd like to sing for you," said Peter to the king. The king's royal eyebrows rose higher and higher as he looked around him. "Well, I must say this is very odd indeed. However, as we've come this far, we may as well hear your song." "Proceed," said the king. Peter opened his mouth and mimed the words while Lombard sang. It was the most beautiful song that anyone had ever heard. By the end of the song, the king was sobbing tears of joy, mirth, and sorrow all together. "That was the finest song I've ever heard," he said. "You have won the audition, and I would like you to be my minstrel." Peter took another low bow. "Sire," he said, "I wish that I could accept, but in all honesty, it was not I who sang, but my friend Lombard the bear." Everyone gasped as they saw the bear in this cage. For a moment, the king looked furious, but then he began to smile and said, "I praise you for your honesty, Peter, and I would very much like to have Lombard for my minstrel. Chancellor, bring me the royal purse." The king paid Lombard's keeper handsomely, who was then delighted to set the bear free. Lombard became the king's minstrel and was famous throughout the land, and from then on Peter went to the palace each day and sang duets with his friend the bear. And it is said that in the end Peter married the king's daughter. The end. Such a lovely story it was, isn't it? I really like Peter for his honesty. Do you like Peter? So finally, the answer to quiz whiz, which bird can fly backwards, is the hummingbird. I hope you liked the story and the quiz whiz question today. Don't forget the answer. And see you tomorrow with a new story, new moral lesson, and a new quiz whiz question. Don't forget to like the story, share the story, and subscribe to my channel. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.